Hi, welcome to this new episode of the Convector Developer Office Hours. Is the episode number 10, and in this chance we're going to talk about the Convector Controller Client. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes. We're just testing out a new platform to broadcast the event this time. YouTube just recently disabled one of the features that we used to live streaming. So if you have like any difficulties like hearing me or seeing what I'm presenting, please let me know on the comments. Otherwise, I think we can just get a start. So yeah, let's get started. So on this episode, I wanted to cover a little bit of the topic about the Convector controller client, which we introduced like version 1.3, if I'm correct. And a little bit of history about this component on inside Convector is previously how we managed to communicate from clients to the actual controllers. It was by generating a generated JavaScript class based on your controller file. So this kind of generated code had to be processed before you can even use this in your code. So essentially, at the beginning, you had just your controller class and your model class, and run a command, and this will output a new generated client for you to use in different environments, like on your backend or your frontend. And this was the way that we used to work with it before. But it had a couple of inconveniences, mostly as the topic that you had to actually run a command before even using it to generate it. And since it's generated code, there are some people that didn't know like if they needed to put it like in the GitHub source control, and in the Git source control, sorry, or not. And yeah, there's kind of this kind of like problems that we were presenting when we had this approach. So on a later release, we migrated that to make a single factory function that just consumes your controller and your adapter, and it will expose like all the methods it has. So with this approach, we gain just like flexibility that you can just import multiple controllers without having to generate any code. So it was really convenient, and I'm actually wanted to show you the code for this. It's actually in this is all in our source control in the main Convector repository that you may find if you go to GitHub Hyperledger Labs /Convector. You will find this repository that I'm showing you in here. And here you will find inside Warsibu we have the controller code adapter. This is part of the adapter package, and in the source code you will have this controller client, and you will see this is just a generic class. It's not too long, the class for this, and essentially it will just take your controller wherever your controller is and take an adapter and return you an object looking with the same properties, the same methods that you had in your controller, plus some additional methods that we are extending in this line here. So basically, if you want to be like aware of what are those extra methods that the controller client has, is basically all the original methods from your controller plus these kind of helper methods that start with a $sign. And the use for those methods are like, well, it depends sometimes on your adapter. It basically sends different commands to your adapter to do different things. And as you know, Convector works with adapter. By default on Fabric we use the Fabric controller adapter, but we also have this the mock controller adapter, and almost recently the browser, the REST API controller adapter as well. And on browser, we have the browser controller adapter. So there are kind of multiple controller adapters that you may have. And we actually want the community to create their own adapters. I know there are people in the Discord chat that they have created their own Fabric implementation, Fabric controller adapter, by using the new Fabric network package from Fabric, which is separate from the official one that we offer on the framework. So, and this is kind of the good things about Convector, is that you're not stuck just with the things that we can offer you. You can always like get new updates if you like. If you just don't like what we offer, you can just take the core framework, which is just the controller and the models and things like that, and plug and play your own adapters and storages, so you don't depend on what we support or not. And this is really cool. And part of that is the controller client. For example, it offers this special method with user that essentially what it does is when it's going to make the call to the adapter, it will just pass an extra option called user with whatever user you pass in here. So, and to give you an example how you can use this, I will just open this unit test that I have in here. Yeah, I'm not really interested on yeah. So here we have client factory. Yeah, this is the client factory. Yeah, great. Let's open up a test that I have in here. Alright, so for example, on this test, we have a client factory in here. We pass the token controller and the adapter, and this returns me a token controller. So just so you can see, let's inspect very quickly the token controller. It has a couple of methods. It has the init, it has the transfer method, it has a get, it has a who am I, fail me, create company token, get identity info, save recursive. So it has a couple of methods that we use for our unit tests. And as you can see, when I use a client factory and I pass the controller and I pass the adapter that I want, in this case it's the Mac controller adapter, it returns me, and I store this in a variable called token controller, which is not exactly the controller, it's a client version of this controller, but it will have all the methods that we have in the controller. So for example, if I do it token controller that, and you will see here that I have the fail me, the get identity info, the who am I, so over here, who am I, yeah, there it is. So we've got all these different methods that we originally had in the controller, although this is, again, this is not the controller, this is a client version of the controller that will just make use to call internally the adapter behind the scenes for us. So in this case, I can make use of any of the special methods that we have in the controller client for you. So for example, if I take this with user, what it will expect is, as you can see, is a string or true. The way it expects a boolean or a true as a value is because for the Fabric specific implementation of the controller adapter, we accept the username as a parameter, or a boolean, a true, if you want to use an admin user for it. So since the admin user has like a special conditions and things like that, it has to pass true for it, and it will make use of the admin user that you specified on your configuration JSON file. So in case that I want to just like use an adapter with a special user, I will just pass here like user2. So just by doing this, it doesn't mean that I will just switch the identities or things like that. This is actually a feature we want to take like approach in the Fabric controller adapter. Right now, the only official adapter that we have using this mechanism is the browser adapter. But in the future releases, we're going to just incorporate like a catalog to handle all the identities of the users that you want to provide with a single string as the username. So in this case, you can register users the cryptographic material for user 2, and the browser controller adapter will just make switch of the user that is using with this with user method. So right now, again, the only adapter that is supporting this with user is the browser, the check adapter browser. So it is making use of that one over here. Yeah, config.user. So yeah, it's only making use of that in here. The other adapters that we have right now, they don't support this property, but they will support this in the upcoming releases. So stay tuned. So and even for the more controller adapter, so we usually have to change like the certificate or the fingerprint of the participants like by hand. In the upcoming releases that we're planning to incorporate or to include with this property from the controller client is that you can just switch easily the user that is sending the transaction with just this method. And how does this work is now I will send a call to who am I, for example, and yeah, it's basically you just prepare these kind of methods with dollar before calling any function. You can actually chain multiple of those methods. We'll see that in a few. But yeah, just make use of the token controller client. In this case, the special method that you want to use. In this case, we want to this call to use the user 2, and make a call to who am I. And again, convector will do nothing with this. It will just pass this information to the specific adapter. And if the adapter has any logic like handling different or multiple users, it will just take care of this parameter and act respectively to whatever they need to do. Another special method that we have, and you can see, it is the query. So the query is a really convenient method. So by default, when you call a method like this, for example, if I do this statement in my code, our token controller, who am I, this will actually send a transaction. Well, it will send a transaction proposal to all of the peers described in my network profile, and when they get the response of all the peers, it will match all the peers responded correctly to the request that I'm sending, which is the who am I. And if they all match and they are all succeed, it will send the request to the orderer, so it can just process the transaction and finally add it to the ledgers and notify all the peers so they can just download the transactions. That's usually how the flow on Hyperledger Fabric works. But the thing is, if this is a query function, and actually who am I is just a function that returns the fingerprint of the one that is calling me. So actually, let's take a look at this. If I go to who am I, it will just return this.sender. I don't really care for this transaction to be recorded in a ledger. I just want to know who am I, right? So it doesn't make any sense for me to actually make a whole transaction with this if I just want to know who am I. So in this case, I just prepare this function invocation with query, and it will just use the query nodes that are configured in your network profile. So there is a section, let me show you that. There is a section, let me see, Cody, Hyperledger Fabric, network profile, org1, yeah. So there is a section, there is a dedicated section for each channel. You describe which are the orderers and which are the peers for this channel. And each of these, you describe each of the peers that you have, and you say which you want for to be the ledger query. So if you specify all of them as that you want to be a ledger query, it will pick one of those like randomly, and send this transaction proposal to those nodes, well, to the selected node actually, and it will after that just give you the response of whatever this peer responded. it won't send this request to the orderer, so this won't provoke any extra transaction, or any extra transaction in your ledger. This will be just a query invocation. So this is pretty convenient for results that you don't really need to write anything in the ledger. You just need to query some data. So you prepend all the functions that are actually queries with this $query method, and it will just behave like in this way. The other methods that we have is raw, which is the most recent helper that we added. We added this in the version 1.2.5, and the difference with the raw helper is that by default, any invocation to a controller, we just return whatever the controller returns, right? So if I, for example, if I make the call token controller who am I, and I will return this fingerprint. So I'll get a fingerprint back, because that's where the who am I returns, that is sender, which is a fingerprint, right? But what happens if I need to get, for example, the transaction ID that this method created? Because as you know, if I'm sending the transaction to the peers and then to the order, this will generate a new transaction ID on the ledger, and this transaction ID will be recorded in a block. But I have no way to get the transaction ID from here. I can go to my controller, and I can see the transaction ID by doing this .dx stop .get transaction. No, sorry, get stop and get transaction ID. With this method, I can get the transaction ID inside the controller, which means this is inside the chain code executed in every peer, right? But if I want to get the transaction ID in the client where I am invoking this, I have no way to do so. In those cases, you just put like a raw, $raw, and now this will return you the fingerprint. It will return you the whole response, right? And with the response, what you will get is, let me actually show you what you will get is adapter fabric. For example, if you are making, if this call is using the adapter fabric, it will return you, let me see. It will return you the transaction result. It will return you this kind of object. So it will return your transaction result, which will have information. This is pure a return from Fabric itself. This is why this is in the Fabric adapter. It will return you the transaction ID, the code, the status of this execution, and the result. The result will be whatever you will get if you didn't use the raw utility. So all this extra method, all these extra properties are just properties coming from the result. So there is no convention like about what you will get with the raw. I mean, this depends on the adapter that you use. For example, in the REST API adapter, if you use the .raw, for example, you might get the HTTP response, of the request that was sent to the backend, for example. If you use the MAC controller adapter, you will probably have to get the same information. But yeah, again, this is all depends on what the adapter returns. So, but it's really convenient when you use the Fabric controller adapter. You can be sure that you will get this structure, this transaction result, if you're using the controller, the Fabric controller adapter. Sorry. And the last one that I want to show you guys today is the config. The config essentially accepts an object, just passing any configuration that you need to pass to the adapter. So actually you can just pass an user in here, for example, and this is actually what is the same as doing $user with user. Yeah, with user 2. So using this or using this is actually the same. Both of all of the methods that I just showed you, what I will do, well, except for raw, all of them will do just add an extra configuration in here. This extra config method is also useful for the interchain code communication example, and I'll show you the example in here. Let me check. Fabric in chain code. If you go to the unit test of this one, you will see that how we managed to invoke the controllers doing like an interchain code communication is we instantiate a client factory using the second controller and an adapter. The adapter is the in-chain code adapter, and this in-chain code adapter is expecting a special configuration when it is sending transactions. What a special configuration is that? It expects you to send the transaction, the full transaction that is taking place, the channel that the other contract controller is located where, and the chain code where the other controller is located right now. So if you are going to use this in-chain code adapter to make like communications from one chain code to another chain code, this is the chain code. This is the adapter that we use on those cases. You get this client, and to this client you apply the $config method, and you pass this DX, which is the current transaction taking place, the channel where the other contract is located, and the chain code where the other contract is located. So this way you will get you will manage to pass this configuration to the in-chain code adapter, and then you will call this, for example, this get method that is just essentially a method in this other controller that we're talking about, this second controller. So yeah, so again, those are the methods that we have for the controller client. Check controller clients in here. Yeah, so those are the 4 special methods that we have in the controller client. We're always like open to extend this for any other cases that you may have. At the end, it was just a few of them. We have been adding, like, for example, the raw, because we didn't have any mechanism to get the transaction ID, for example, on things like that. And the config, we added it later as well when we added the in-chain code adapter. So again, if you like are having any problems or just wondering like how can I extend this to make like something we cannot just do right now, always let us know in the Discord chat. We're always more than happy to listen to you guys and to collaborate with you and with your solution. I know Walsh is always available in the Discord community, answering questions and things like that. So if there's any question, if there's anything that we currently don't support right now, making a release is something we can do for you guys. So please always let us know what are the things you have in your mind, or if there is anything we can do to make your lives easier. So in general, this is the presentation that I have for you guys today. Now the developer office hours video are going to be starting like half an hour, starting on the last video on episode 9. You guys requested the videos to be shorter, so we hear you, and we're just going to start doing half an hour videos. So again, thank you very much for joining. I will be just like reading all your comments on the video on the Discord channel. And yeah, if you have any questions, please join us and ask it with just confidence. We will hear you. Okay, so thank you very much for joining, and see you next time.